Evening. Call the October 2nd FinCom meeting to order. We could stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to be a little out of order here on some of the things that's going to go on. Mike, any update on a recording secretary?
No.
Okay. How difficult is it to just get a Wheaton student, a high school student, anybody?
We need someone, so if anyone knows anyone, we need a recording secretary here, and we could use a part-time secretary filling in for Jen till she's back.
All right, with that said, who wants to volunteer? Walter, awesome, thank you.
You need,
All right, Mike?
the superintendent is here. He's going to be traveling, so he'd like to go over his requests for our town meeting before he heads out.
Nothing over there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for taking me. I appreciate it very much. And Mike, it's nice to see you without a tie joining me. I don't know if you folks, I think you have an original copy that, of our requests that was forwarded. If you don't, I do have copies.
Thank you.
I'll take it.
Just for clarification, this is what we eliminated in the Springtown budget. We bought the minimum curriculum materials and supplies for the start of the school year, and we'll get through the month of November, and then after that, we have some issues. I'm really concerned about keeping our technology going forward, because that's a major initiative that we have in the district. If you remember, we used just under $900,000 of our school choice money as part of our operating budget. That was presented to not only you, but also to the town meeting. And so we did the traditional cutting of our materials and supplies. I call it a tradition because I kind of feel like every year I come back for the same issue. But don't also forget that within the curriculum materials, one of the concerns, the 101254 number, is that we're really making a push on wellness. Remember that we added, even through that budget in the spring, we added the wellness teacher at the high school because we want to, as of this year, our freshmen are required to take wellness class. So that not only do they have the physical education wellness requirement, but they also have the actual classroom wellness requirement. That's new as of this year. Special education continues to be the target area for curriculum and instruction and materials, simply because if you have a student who's in a classroom and they're part of the inclusion and their reading level isn't there, we have to find other materials for that student if they're below grade level, especially if they're within an inclusion setting and as low as 1 to 2 grades within the inclusion setting. But also, we're trying to make sure that we align that our curriculum is aligned even when a student is in a specialized program. Because remember, they still have to take MCAS and pass it. In some instances, the students with the most severe disabilities, they're going to go through a different process. It's still an MCAS called the MCAS ALT. It's the alternative test. That's a portfolio assessment that students have to do. And we have a number of students in the district that do that. And then we have students who get significant accommodations for the testing, which is, there's about 36 different accommodations you can get on the test: scribe, reader, those types of things, text. In terms of technology for the student that may be on their IEP, so on and so forth. So we're really targeting that. As you know, the music program has been something that a lot of people have a lot to say, so we've been targeting our music program at the high school. We're now up another 0.8 of a teacher up there. We kept that in the budget. That's allowed for us to distribute class sizes as well. Yes?
When you say target, what do you mean? What do you
We kept it in our budget as part of our proposals throughout. In the budget, correct. And then the software is currently on order pending funding. That's just a matter of getting a yes at town meeting so we can actually get it in. And those are all our software needs connected to Chromebooks and student needs. That's not part of our capital plan that we have. That's another meeting that'll be coming up under the capital plan, which was the $160,000 for upgrading all of our tech hardware throughout the district in terms of the needs, and we'll have that explained at the capital meeting, and I'm sure it'll be coming to you folks as well. We started the professional development last year. If you remember, we put in $25,000 into the budget to begin that our teachers become trauma-sensitive, we become trauma-sensitive schools. We actually had over 40 teachers take that course in the district. We want to continue to do that with Lesley University. This is above and beyond course reimbursement that teachers are doing in their contract. This is kind of like a way for us to say, we really want you to do this. It's, we also have a deal on that. It's actually $500 per teacher. And our paraprofessionals have asked to be part of that, which is kind of a really positive thing from our perspective. So this is the second year, and it's also supported by school choice funds, another $25,000. And then the rationale, again, is the typical $300,000 we've been cutting from materials and supplies, I think, every year that I've been here, and then we get something back in the fall, and we're able to survive. I also sent to Bill, Mr. Rotundo, I also said to him and others to pass out to you the end-of-the-year transfers. I know there was some questions about that in June. Those transfers were done within the school budget and were voted by the school committee. Those have been done, and I also sent you all the updated personnel so that you can look at change for change, who's new, who's old, who left, maybe your favorite person left, maybe your favorite person got hired. I think in general, as a request, again, this is not personnel, we're not adding any personnel with this budget, as we continuously have done at the supplemental. I do have some significant concerns in kindergarten, where I do have class sizes in the 24 range, specifically at the LGN. But as you know, it's really difficult to hire a teacher. At that age, it's not difficult to hire the teacher. It's more difficult to actually make the transition of now going to a new teacher and what that means to kids and families. So we have not proposed that going forward. It'll probably be in next year's budget. October 1, so to justify some of this, if you would like, our October 1 numbers, last year the JCS had 467 students plus 24 choice students for a total of 491. This year it has 473 plus 32 choice for a total of 505. So both the choice number and the local number went up. The LGN has 272 total between choice and the district, and it's also up 8 students locally, and actually down 2 school choice, so it's a positive 6. The Hay School is the biggest hit, and we knew that's where it was going to happen. Locally, it's down 28 because we have that 3rd grade group going through. They're now the 4th grade group. It's our lowest enrollment. One increase in the school choice. The middle school is at 600 between choice and local, and that includes 3 more students locally and 10 more students in choice. And the high school is down 21 students locally, up 5 students for a total of 703 versus 719 last year. To be quite honest, our churn, as we call it in education, our churn was actually high this year. We're having right around 4%. So what's that mean? That means from October 1 to the end of the year and the start of the next school year, how much are we really turning over students? How many students are actually leaving versus how many students are coming in? The month of August was very busy for us, and it was 2 and 3 at a time coming in. And so it really took what was projected to be a total negative of 116 students, which is what we based our budget on, was actually only down 27. And as I said, 24 of those were at the Hay School that we knew. So if you look at our total district numbers from last year to this year, we had 2,375 students last year. We have 2,348. School choice last year was 110. It's 132 this year. Reed's Collaborative has 41 students with us. Last year they had 40, for a total of all encompassing of 2,525 last year and 2,521 this year. And again, once these are certified, I'll send the copy over. It's not a problem. Any numbers, we use October 1 numbers, but they can fluctuate because one of the things that happens in Norton sometimes is that a student is a Norton resident, and then they become a choice student, because the parents have bought a house in a local community, but they want to keep their student here. So that happens anywhere from, I'd say, a good 4 to 6 to 8 a year, every year. So that happens, and we're pretty pro our residents that decide to leave, and they encompass and go into school choice. Yes, sir.
So your original budget that you projected was 160 students less.
116 students less, correct. So we ended up, if you remember, we had...
You're about the same. So you projected to have less,
We-
so you asked for less.
Yeah, so the question that always comes up for us is where do we project them, right? So we knew we had a class going through.
Yep.
So we know if we have a body of 24, then we aren't gonna, it's not gonna be there. We could make a projection. The problem that we have locally is that your real estate market is flying right now, and, which is a good thing for Norton, not a bad thing necessarily. We can't control some of these situations. We end up with the bus situation every year. This year was pretty good. It was better than last year, to be quite honest, but we had a couple of buses where literally kids moved in the last month of the month. Kindergarten was our biggest surprise, because if you remember, that's where we were absorbing a cut. So that was our biggest surprise this year, because we needed the body. So as we do every single year, as you know from, I think, a presentation maybe 2 fiscal years ago, if I have staff leave in the summertime and I'm able to save somewhere and then need a position, that's where I get the money. It stays within the bottom number, but that's how I add the position. Yep.
So you would have asked for 160 more students in your budget when you asked for the budget, if you'd known it was going to stay the same.
Conservatively, yes.
Right, okay.
But I hardly ever take the, if you will, the projected number. We use NESDEC, N-E-S-D-E-C, they project our numbers. They actually just came in this week. They take our October 1 numbers. They take your sales, birth rates, building codes, all of, building permits, excuse me. They take all of that and they say, this is what we project you out to be. And then we take that number and say, what are we seeing? And we exclude choice from that number. That's not part of the way that we do it. What we didn't have for surprises this year that was a positive thing is we had plenty of move-ins, which is a good thing. The positive with that is we also had a lot of move-ins that weren't necessarily placed out of district. Which, as you know, when a student moves from Attleboro to Norton, if they're at a private school, the likelihood of us being able to move that student is pretty difficult. We just didn't have a lot of that. If you remember, 2 fiscal years ago, we went to town meeting because we had a significant number of kids during the summertime. Our biggest worry continues to be mental health. That is our number one issue that we're dealing with on a daily basis, and it's pre-K through 12. There is no, I can't tell you there isn't a pocket in every single one of our 5 schools. It's mental health, it's anxiety and depression. It's AP students who do well in school, and students that are struggling with substance abuse. It's students who are in our buildings for the first time, and they're not used to coming to school, or create activities at school that cause us to have to send them out of district right off the bat, first week of school. So that's the most difficult part of our budget. I can tell you right now, knock on wood please, that it's stable, but as you know, I can't assure you. As I'll usually tell Bill and whoever the chair is, I usually email you and say I'm a little concerned about something. I'm sure if you want to talk about asbestos at the Hay, I'm willing to talk with you about that as well. You'll be updated soon on that. We're just waiting to get some specifics.
I have a question about that. There have been a lot of stories about what exactly happened.
Sure.
Could you fill us in?
Yeah, so on August 22nd, which was a Thursday, we were notified right around late morning, 11, 12 o'clock, that there was a potential that a worker said to a staff member that was in that area, there's asbestos up here, you need to leave. This is part of the window project. At that time, they'd already been working in that area since Monday, but there was no asbestos situation going on, which is, I think, part of the confusion, is that people see windows being moved and stuff, and they think automatically it must have happened. It was on the 2nd floor, nothing on the 3rd floor, nothing on the 1st floor. And some type of dust came. It was, in fact, above, seemed to be a pipe at the elbow that is wrapped from the original 1948 building that, in fact, was deteriorating. That was then, at some point, and again, I've asked for something in writing, someone, this is the key thing, we know it wasn't our employees, We know it's the contractor or somebody, somewhere, someone. This is considered by DEP an accident. It wasn't purposely done or anything else. Took material and moved it down that hallway, potentially on both sides, and into the elevator to take it outside and dump it outside. So now the dump is contaminated, the hallway and staircases are contaminated, and the elevator's contaminamonted. So we shut it down and began the process of DEP, DLS. It's been a pretty stressful month and a half, 2 months now. It's taken up every single ounce of our day, every day. We have a lot of people stressed out about it. You know, did I get contaminated? Is my health in danger? Our students weren't in the building. We did have some staff in and out, but the event took place on the 22nd of August.
So there were no Champion students in the building?
They were down, if they were in the building, they're downstairs. That area from the bottom of the staircase through the boiler room, coming to the gym cafeteria has nothing, and the rest of the building has nothing. It has asbestos, but it's properly covered and taken care of. Asbestos can't be moved, that's the key. If it's moved in any way, shape, or form, it creates the dust fiber, and that's what causes, of course, I've also learned that needs to be either a short-term, pretty significant amount, or a long-term, small amount that you've been around. 3 of our buildings have asbestos, not unusual. Anything before, anything in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they're going to have it. Our houses have it if they're from that time period, potentially. It's all about encapsulating it and keeping it untouched. Our HERA report, which is the report that we have to do every 3 years specifically, and then every 6 months, only the areas that are potentially hot, was up to date, thanks to Wade Lizotte and his work. And now we're working through the process of how did this really happen, expenses. Currently, we have at least 3 classrooms completely gutted. There were 5 hotspots. That means 5 different areas. Those 5 different areas were low ratio numbers, but they were still hotspots. And now it's either cleaning or completely taking it from, there's 2 ceilings above it. There's the ceiling that was put in at some point, and then there's the original above it. And that's where the pipes are. The pipes are about 4 to 6 feet in length if they're on the ceiling. And this is 2nd to 3rd floor. That's why the 3rd floor didn't have any hits. It had a trace in room 311, but the trace was found after 2 more parts of testing to have nothing. All air quality tests came back negative during the entire time. That to me is a positive piece of information to have. There are standards from the federal government and the state government on air quality. There are no standards from the federal government or state government on wipes. It's basically DEP and DLS saying this is the number and this is what we utilize. That's what I've been told. They've been great. I've, since day one, communicated with families and teachers saying they're in charge, whatever they want us to do. So we're on the 4th phase of cleaning and or abatement. Each of those is done by a designer. It's monitored by the designer's employee, and then there's a second source, a company that's trained in abatement that's doing the cleaning. Materials that are cleaned are put into bags by room number, taken into a containment area, opened up. 10% of any product has to be swiped, and those go in, and we fast test them at $100 a test. Bill as of last week was just under $85,000. So the process of who, what, when, where, and why is the next process as part of all of this. As you know, if you've been to the LGN or the JCS, they look great. The rooms are absolutely better airflow, cooler on the hot days. We already found that out when we come back in the fall. Rain's not coming in. That's a good thing. And we're on the the checkoff list there for each of the 2 other buildings to be completed. So that's what I have. I'll be meeting with the Teachers Union and the Mass Teachers Association who have some questions about the timeline, and people should get x-rays and all this other stuff. That's what I'm dealing with right now. And by that I mean staff. Those are situations that are up to them, not up to me.
All right.
Yes, sir.
What was the enrollment at Hay School in the Staten Harbor?
I don't think he said it because I missed it.
Down 28.
Yeah, I just,
Down 20,
I did the math and it came out to 4.
sorry. Hay School is 332 to 360. That's the difference, local. 24-23, up one choice, total of 356 versus 383.
So 356 is the current.
Yeah, I'll send, as soon as this is certified, which we do usually at the next school committee meeting, which is tomorrow night, if that's the number that we're sending in, then my person in the office says that's the number we have to use, and we're done. We can't, anything that comes in after that, that's a local, I can't count at all until the March numbers. So we'll only get a partial of a student. And we don't typically accept school choice students after September 1st, unless in special circumstances, like I said earlier, Norton resident type of situation. And or a sibling, that's the only other one. Numbers at sending district numbers should also be down in terms of where our kids are going. Those numbers should be down. I don't have those numbers yet, but Charter, Aggie, Southeastern should be a little bit down. Again, if kids need to go to those schools, they should be going there, but I don't think the numbers are up.
I just want to say, as the parent of a student who has been displaced at the Yale School,
Sorry.
you guys have done a tremendous job. My child has had a fabulous start to the school year, and we couldn't be happier with
Well,
the work he's been doing so far.
I appreciate, it's a great group of teachers. I appreciate very much what the administration and teachers have done there. I appreciate very much the parents, knowing that we are doing everything we can. It's been a difficult year for the administration, for the kids, for the teachers. The kids have been great. They're as happy as ever when I see them in the hallway. That doesn't mean that they don't have their own stresses about not being in a place. I'm sure we're going to be dealing with some stresses when we get the all clear to go back. Right now, what we're really thinking about is once those rooms are all clear to go back, they will not go back until the windows are in. I might as well just put them back in there with nice windows and a nice floor and a nice whiteboard back up, and at least they'll go into, in some cases, not all the rooms, because some of the rooms is just cleaning, but at least all new windows for all the rooms that can be opened, and, you know, especially in the second and third floor. And I appreciate the comment, I'll end with this too, that they're not in the best of classroom settings. I mean, they're tight. I mean, they're using a business office,
Yeah,
a
Nate's in the
state office.
classroom.
Okay?
He's in Matt Wells' office.
Those classrooms are not made for 22, 24, 25 kids. You know, they're smaller classrooms. You know, we have closets being used for specialized areas. I mean, we're doing anything we can to not impact the rest of the district or cause any more stress. Besides that, it's been a fantastic start to the school year.
Smooth sailing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, very much for letting me, and I'll see you town meeting.
Okay. If we could go over the special town meeting articles. There's nothing there that costs us any money, so Article 1. Article 1 is an article to change the town election from Tuesday to Saturdays. The main reason with that, it'll be one less day when students are in school, that people are going in the schools voting. Obviously, we can't change state elections and federal elections. The only one we can do is the town election. So this would change the town election from the last Tuesday of April to the fourth Saturday of April.
Is there a reason why it has to be in that part of April? So it's in April vacation. So that Saturday is the ending of April vacation. So there's probably a push somewhat for absentee ballots, but how well is that utilized currently?
The absentee ballots, I'd have to ask the town clerk. I vote absentee all the time now. So much easier. But I don't know if the fourth Saturday would always be,
The school, would it be always?
I'm pretty sure it would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally
It's generally,
the third full week of April,
Because
which
it's
means
Patriots Day.
it's
week.
the third and fourth Saturdays of April.
right.
Wrap
So
around it.
It's always going to be in a vacation week. So, I would just figure there'd be pushback for those who actually go on vacation during that time and don't do absentee, which is why I was kind of, you know, how do you move people from,
It used to be the last Tuesday of April. Isn't that similar? It's still during vacation week, isn't it?
No, it's the
Yeah.
week after.
it's the week after?
so when is Patriots Day this
It's
coming
the
year?
20th.
It's the,
Or
You know,
2020.
my gut feeling is, I don't think they were thinking of the school vacation as much as they were thinking of moving from a Tuesday to a Saturday. I think that's what they were thinking. that
Right,
maybe
but if
we'll
we're gonna
vote
move
if
it
it's
from
on
a
Saturday.
Tuesday to a Saturday, we could move it to the first Saturday in April, and then
Yeah.
it wouldn't be an issue.
Right, that's why I'm asking, is there a reason it had to be at that part of April?
Because let's face it, nobody's really thinking about, oh, it's election day next month
Right.
in March.
Right,
No, and I think they were, my gut feeling is they wanted to put it on a Saturday. They
I
weren't thinking-
don't have a problem with the Saturday.
Yeah,
I
that's-
have a problem saying, let's do a Saturday, and it's always going to be a vacation Saturday, a potential
A
vacation Saturday.
popular.
That's not good either, yeah.
It's
Oh.
always going to be, unless you do away with April vacation.
I'll bring it up tomorrow night.
So beyond that, does it cost the town any more, any less to staff a Saturday vote versus a Tuesday vote?
The only thing I'd have to look at, police details, whether that costs us more on a Saturday. I'm not sure it does, but that would be the only thing.
Does the town charge us during the week for that? Because normally a weekend or something, if you have some other function, the schools would charge you for the janitor and such. Open the building and heat it,
Right, normally they don't charge us.
right, because it's open, because the school's in session. So they might.
And go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if we would need fewer police officers in general, because we won't be having to like keep an eye on containment of people away from
Right.
students.
In the building.
In the
Right.
building.
We probably will need fewer, and I think if it's on a Saturday, it may not be as long either. The reason a weekday is so long, because people have to vote before work or
Yeah.
after work,
Yep.
so you may be eliminating the evening hours. I'll have to talk to the town clerk about that, so it'd be less.
You might have to check with the
So it doesn't,
state laws on that, too.
it doesn't cost anything more for
No,
the town hall employees who are sitting over there and,
no. So do you want to,
I was just going to comment, there are a lot of towns that do use Saturdays for elections,
right.
so we certainly wouldn't be the first.
No, again, you know, I don't have a problem with a Saturday. It's just that Saturday that just struck me when I read it. It's like, that's a vacation week.
Agreed.
Aaron?
I think the goal should be to create as little barrier to voting as possible, right? I mean, we just want people to be able to have access to the ballot and as easy an access as possible. So Saturday, good. Vacation Saturday,
Not so.
not so good. But yeah, you know, I think it's probably easier for people to, you know, swing by on a Saturday than it is on, a typical Tuesday for a lot of people.
Right.
You know, I know there are a lot of commuters from Boston, you know, racing that train home, racing into the ballots, you know, trying to get there before 8. Watch my wife do it, a dozen times. You know, Saturday would make life easy. But the goal at the end of the day should be to, you know, make it as, accessible as possible. And if bumping it a week into early May drags it out of a school vacation week or, just a time where a lot of people are getting away and doing other things, that would be sensible, reasonable.
Okay. Article 2 is a bylaw amendment to amend the town bylaws, so everywhere that it says selectmen, change to select board.
What would the cost of that to amend, or how many places is that gonna
It,
wind up?
I mean, we'll obviously we'll wait until stationery runs out that says selectmen on it. We're not gonna be throwing that away, and, so it's not a big added cost.
I think it's a fantastic idea.
I agree.
About time.
About time.
Welcome to the new millennium, gentlemen.
Whatever.
Hey,
It's okay.
Do you want to vote on that?
Do we, this stuff, we usually vote after the Board of Selectmen on this? don't
Say that again?
Don't we usually vote after the Board of Selectmen on most things?
Well, this is put forth by the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, it is?
And they
Oh,
put
Yeah.
it forward.
all right.
I'm figuring they're for that one.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I move that we recommend Article 2 as written,
Second.
Article 2 of the special town meeting.
of the special town meeting as written.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for Article 2 of the special town meeting. Vote in favor or recommend. Any further discussion?
Mike, has
Hearing-
anybody presented any downside to this that's raised anything? Okay, good, thanks.
All those in favor? That's unanimous.
And Article 3 is the same, only with the chart, to amend the charter, anywhere that it says selectmen, to change that to select board.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I recommend that I move that we recommend Article 3 of the special town meeting as written.
second.
Motion and a second to recommend Article 3 of the special town meeting as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Article 4 is a charter amendment to change anywhere that it says Industrial Development Commission to the Economic Development Commission.
Mr. Chairman,
That's not as significant, but whatever. Peter?
I move that we recommend Article 4 of the special town meeting as written.
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend Article 4 of the special town meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Article 6, Article 6 is a request to transfer $140,000 from money appropriated under Article 12 of the October 23rd, 2017 Fall Town Meeting that was set aside for costs of engineering and design for a new town hall senior community center. And the two purposes, the first 70,000 would be to evaluate potential sites for a town hall and a community center, including incidental related expenses. And the second one would be to prepare a conceptual layout and graphic information for presentation to the public of a unified municipal complex, including a new town hall and senior community center, and modifying the overall access, circulation, and parking for the police, fire, DPW, town hall, senior community center, and library facilities, or take any other action. So if the town votes to purchase the land next door, they'd only be using the 70,000 under 2 there. If they don't vote to purchase the land next door, then they would have to do first, number one, to determine a site, and then have an architect do the evaluation of that site and place a building on it. And all this money is coming out of that article, so it doesn't require any appropriation out of town funds.
Peter?
What would be left in that article if we took out the?
There's 1.3 million in
Okay.
that article right now.
I don't know if this has any bearing to this article or the decision-making process in front of us. Can we step back a bit to what numerous people pointed out to me over the past couple of days about the cost of cleaning up Reed and Barton? And I guess where I'm going, potentially, is if the cost of that at 500,000, give or take, is the true and ultimate cost, then does that, and that provides a clean site, does that then open up that site again to be town hall and senior center?
Well, the total cost at Reed and Barton was 1.3 million.
What was in the paper, though, for five
That's,
something?
that is an article on the warrant to tear down the two buildings along Cross Street.
Just the ones that are hanging over the road.
Just those two buildings? Okay. Okay.
And that's just a tear down, that's not remediation or cleanup.
It will be
What?
any asbestos remediation
Yeah,
that has to
yeah,
be done.
Of the tear down, not necessarily of the whole site.
But it's not the whole site? Okay.
No.
Okay. Never mind.
Back to that, are we on the hook for the cleanup of that whole site?
No,
We're not,
we don't own the site.
okay.
So if we don't own the site, that makes me feel like we're not on the hook for any of the cleanup of the
But-
site.
Well, cleanup versus moving a dangerous building, that's
Yeah, it's different.
different. Cleaning up the pollution is one thing. Moving a
Removing it.
hazard
Different.
is totally different. So I understand the cost to remove the buildings if they're about to just topple on you.
Mike, if we spend money removing those buildings, is that a lien that we can put on that property for that?
We will put a lien on the property
Okay.
for that.
And by doing that type of work, that then doesn't open us up or obligate us,
To clean it up?
No,
okay.
no, it's an emergency, so under state law, the building inspector can order buildings to be taken down. If there's no owner, then we can take them down.
Okay. So back to Article 6.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. The original plans that we saw, all of the mock-ups for the Elm Street property, the people who produced those, that we paid for the original design specs, they won't be able to put together like a separate configuration where they're on different properties?
Well, they can do they'll have to be paid to do that.
But I didn't know if it was something that like
No.
would be included in, kind of the work we've already done with them.
Now, assume we bought those plans.
Just the study that they did on the size, the space that's needed in each building, we have that. That's-
Okay.
Which is helpful. They didn't do much site work stuff anyways previously. They just looked at the property and the size of it and saw where they could fit buildings and put them on there. They haven't done any topographic surveys and things like that yet.
Okay.
And the potential of purchasing next door to to kind of make it one contiguous lot, and then space back there. That's enough room for both and parking and all that?
It is. They actually, for free, did a conceptual plan for us that shows the buildings on there. I can get you a copy of that.
Cool. Peter?
So Mike, the purchasing the property possibly next door, is that not happening at this town meeting?
It is.
It is.
It's on the-
Different
It's on
number.
the
This is
annual
special.
warrant.
Oh, it's on the annual warrant, okay.
Yeah.
Is there a legal way to,
Get the answer first.
get the answer first before we
Yeah.
decide on this? In other words, if that fails, can this be worded so that if that fails, this warrant, this article says 70,000, but if it passes, or if it fails, it's 140, if it passes, it's 70? You know what I'm trying to say?
We can check and see how that can be done, but it really doesn't matter much because the money is coming out of that money that was set aside for the senior center town hall anyway, so if it's not spent, it can just be moved back in there. So say the town votes to buy that property, then the architect can take just that 70,000 and do his concept, and the other 70,000 would still be sitting in the article. And then when we go forward to do anything further, we can reappropriate it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Aaron?
Mike, what's the difference in cost between doing version where numbers 1 and 2, where we're evaluating potential sites, and doing the conceptual layout? So, you know, I guess, what is the cost of doing just number 1?
70.
No,
70.
70?
Yeah.
70,000 and
So I
70.
think what Peter's question is there a way to get the answer on the question of the purchasing of the land so that when people are voting on this, they know if, that what they're voting on is going to include that $70,000 or not?
Well, the problem will be in timing.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the
That
specials.
We're probably going to be in and do the special before we get to that article,
It's not
unless
something the moderator can.
moderator gets a vote to take it out of order. They could do that first. But as I said, the money's just going to stay there anyway, so it's not like you're taking it out of free cash and that could have been used for something else. It's coming out of the money that was set aside for a town hall senior center, and if they don't need to use that 70,000, then when they move forward with another phase, they would just take that 70 and put it back.
So, maybe this is up to town council, but the article says there's 2 uses for this money of $140,000, 1 and 2. It doesn't actually attribute 70,000 to 1 and 70,000 to 2. So realistically, they could take that 140 and spend it on number 2.
If they had to.
Right. I think that's what, I guess I'm worried about. Not worried, but just, if the
Well-
purpose is for 70 for this part, the article is written that actually that's 140 for both.
Well, when the motion's made, it would specify.
Oh, it would specify.
When the actual motion is made,
Yep.
it would specify that 70,000 to be used for number 1 and 70,000 to be used for the purpose in number 2.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that then.
Bonnie?
I would just like to say that I think even if it were voted to be taken out of order, it's not a very good idea to try and rush that decision. And if people feel as though there's a time constraint between 7 o'clock and 7:30
Yeah.
to make a decision, I think that's not going to go well, and there's a really good chance that it will take longer than half an hour, no matter when it is, because that's how things tend to go it's a big decision, it makes sense. But people will come in, and everyone will want to share their opinion, so I don't think it's a good idea to try to squeeze it in before the special town meeting begins.
Yeah.
Yep. Anybody want to make a motion or
I'll make a
want to
motion
sit
to be
on
ready
it?
to vote. All right, I'll make a motion. Mr. Chairman,
Peter,
I recommend, I make a motion that we recommend to approve Article 6 of the special town meeting as written,
well, can we say with the
with
stipulation
the stipulation that our motion
that the 70,
is
70?
70,000 for each part 1 and 2. I don't know how that's the right way to word it, but that's what I just said.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to recommend Article 6 with our stipulation that the breakout between 1 and 2 will be as presented, 70,000 for 1 and 70,000 for 2, for a total of 140.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Amy?
I just have a question. Has the Board of Selectmen and the Permanent Building Committee already, I know that they put this article forth, but I just want to make sure that they've all voted or approved or want to.
Say your question again, Amy.
My question is, has the Board of Selectmen and the Permanent Building Committee voted actually to move forward on this? Not just throwing it on here to see what happens?
The building committee came to the Board of Selectmen's meeting to propose it.
Okay.
Okay.
But they then asked for more information, right? So they have not voted on it yet,
I don't know. I'd have to check on
so. I believe the Board of Selectmen asked for
Oh, the
what
Board
the
of,
number 2 is, which is what the conceptual plans would look like.
no,
on the new
no, the Board of Selectmen was asking for information that I'll bring them tomorrow night on the land purchase article. They wanted to make sure that the buildings would fit
Right.
on both buildings.
And we are sure of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So a motion and a second. All those in favor? I think that's unanimous. Thank you.
And the annual town meeting articles. The article on the rail trail project. Now I gotta find out which number I'm on.
Where are you? Still in special?
Back on the annual.
We don't have a new copy, right,
Um,
of the annual?
No, I-
fall?
You should, it's in your packet tonight. Is it? This is article, it's in your packet that you got tonight?
It is?
But it was not.
Something told us to bring it.
I did.
Yeah, no, I zapped out an email saying,
Bring last.
Right, bring the
Bring
last.
last.
Yes.
I did.
Article 10.
so I don't think it's in tonight's.
There we go.
Yeah, sure.
All right, what number?
10.
10.
What's your meeting?
And that was 125,000?
Yes.
There we go. Rail trail, 125 kids and 3 kids.
And so Article 10 would be to appropriate money for any possible takings or easements for the construction of the rail trail. So this would be similar to what we did on Route 123, where we have to hire an appraiser, and then we have to hire a review appraiser to review what the appraiser did, and then pay people for temporary easements, permanent easements, or takings. Obviously, we're only in the 25% design phase right now, so our best estimate is $125,000 for that. We spent $115 on 123, and the rail trail's a lot longer than 123, obviously. And we already know at least 25 easements that we're gonna have, or takings. and there'll probably be more as they go along. So this would allow us to have the money there, so when they finish more in-depth plans and we get to the point that we can do the takings, we'd be ready to go so we can keep the project on track to try and get it onto the tip sooner than later.
And this is from free cash?
Yes.
Walter?
I'm just curious about these easements. So does that mean the butters protrude onto the,
No, well, there's some places they'll be going out on the road. A lot of the easements are grading easements because there's areas where they'll have to do some grading on the trail. And so there'll be temporary easements when they're working on the grading.
I don't think you meant by temporary, just while they're working?
Right.
So we're not paying for any of those, or just?
We have to pay for the temporaries, yep. And there could be some permanent easements too along the way.
Aaron?
And the permanent easements would be to allow access points to the trail from Midway, or,
If,
where you don't have to get on the trail at the beginning or at the end.
Right.
You can kind of jump on in the middle.
well, if they have to do anything as far as utility work, drainage, or, signs,
Electrical, for
electrical
lighting.
signs, right.
Kind of thing, yeah, gotcha.
Paula?
The people who live on this land that would need easements, have they already agreed to it?
No, because we haven't even gotten to that phase where we have the final plan so that we can send out the takings.
Peter?
And this, this 125, it's just been allocated, it won't be spent till the project actually happens.
Right.
So it's just being allocated.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Amy?
I move that we approve or recommend Article 10 as written.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to recommend Article 10 of the Fall Town Meeting for $125,000, which will come out of free cash. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? Might as well start the process early. How much is in free cash at the moment?
Free cash is $4,181,813.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Less 125.
Say it faster, Mike. Faster, faster.
$4,181,813.
Score sheet is in them.
Minus 125.
Minus, yeah.
Now minus.
Well, it hasn't been spent yet, hasn't been approved.
Well, we just kind of approved it, so.
I mean, by town meeting.
Yeah.
They're the boss.
The next article I want to talk to you about is the LED streetlight conversion. I gave you some information in your packet tonight that I gave to Peter last week so he could do his notes. Let's see.
Article 13?
Yes.
That's in the packet.
Last couple pages. Right here.
And also, right after we met, I think the last time, I got an email from, that I provided to you, and this is from MAPC, because we're applying to them for a grant, and it gives a timeline, so you can see that we have to have this project completed by May 31st, 2020. So it's something that's going to happen right away. And by the way, when I drove home last week, as soon as you cross into Easton, all the lights are LEDs.
They are. And they're Roach Brothers.
And they're bright.
Yeah, it took me a second to readjust to the road after I looked at it.
Don't be looking.
Don't stare directly at them.
Wow.
But originally, I was thinking of using free cash, but we're gonna have budget supplements, and we're gonna wanna put money in capital and stabilization, and the payback isn't that bad. If we do a short-term borrowing, 5 years, our savings is gonna be $90,000 a year. So I would propose doing our interest rate on the borrowing we're doing right now, we're gonna be signing the bonds, the selectmen will tomorrow, was 2.0 something percent for borrowing. So if we borrow this money and pay it back in 5 years with the savings, it'll be worth it.
What's the amount one more time?
Self-funding.
It is. I mean, they provided me with a schedule that I gave you that shows 10 years, but I really want to spread it out that far. I think we could do it in 5 years, because we're supposed to have a $90,000 savings in our utility costs for the streetlights every year. So I would recommend that article with borrowing.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I recommend Article 13. Get into it right now. As written, into the sum of borrowing $455,000.
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend Article 13 of the Fall Town Meeting in the amount of $455,000 with the intent to borrow the funds over a 5-year period?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
And the cemetery rules, I don't know if you're ready to take them up tonight. If you are.
I read it, it was riveting.
Some question on it, actually.
The Cemetery Commission did a good job. Their rules were very archaic that they did have, so they've modernized all the rules, had town council review everything, and they've come back with the suggestion that is in your packet.
Anybody have the article number?
It's 9.
Peter?
So Mike, when I was reading it, on page 7, maybe someone can help me figure this out, section 11.4, capacity, in the case of a single grave. Each single grave is granted the right of ground burial of 2 deceased human remains, being 1 full casket and 4 cremated remains per designated grave. But the first sentence says you have the right of 2, but 4. 4 is more than 2, so I don't know how you can put
But only
4
one
in.
casket.
But only 1 casket, so I don't know how you can put 4 cremated in 1 casket, or one or the other, we only allow 2 people. The math doesn't work for me.
It says human, perhaps it means pets.
I mean, the cremated remains doesn't have to be human?
I
So is
don't,
that part of the 4?
No, it's 2 people, 1 casket.
Is there a definition of grave?
I signed up for till death do us part, but I thought I was off the hook at that point.
so many jokes. We don't have all night, you guys.
Please omit them. They won't be
I just
missed.
think maybe we can review it, or have council review it, or the committee review it, because,
So yeah, it's either the wording or it's,
yeah, the wording or
Directly
the
Yeah.
numbers,
opposing
it just
itself.
doesn't.
It-
Okay.
I think, and I could be wrong, but I think what it means is you could have the burial of 2 deceased humans in caskets, and, or 4 cremated urns or whatever.
I agree. That's my best
But
guess.
it's not worded, right?
But the way that
we
it's
can make
worded
it
is
more clear.
very, very confusing.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's write it up in a way where it can't be argued.
Yeah, we don't want someone to try and bury 6 people in one plot and have them like waving this in the air at somebody in the highway department saying, no, this says you can do it that way.
So what it's saying is, in a single grave, you can bury 2 people, and they have to be in a full casket.
Together or
No,
separately?
Together.
One casket, 2 people.
'Cause that's also
2
quite
caskets,
confusing.
2 people.
Yeah,
I would.
Because I think
would
what it's saying is human is distinguishing it from cremation,
Right.
right? So
I don't-
humans
I-
meaning bodies.
I think they're just saying it has to be either one, you have to be in a full casket, the 2 of you, and not together.
But I'm pretty sure sometimes they can put 2 caskets
Or-
in one,
Or
essentially.
cremated
gravesite.
remains.
Right, 'cause you share a
Per
headstone.
designated grave.
Well, you would share the, lack of a better word, I don't know what the term is, sarcophagus. In other words, the cement thing that you put the casket in.
One on top.
You could put 2 people, you could put 2 caskets in there. Generally, that's called a gravesite, right? So then
I don't know.
4 cremated remains you could put in that same cement, whatever they call that thing.
Vault.
yeah.
Vault, that's the word, vault.
Yeah.
Because they go on in the next paragraph to talk about, in the case of cremation-only graves, so they're talking about a cremation-only grave, is what they called a single grave above. They talk about 4 cremated remains per designated grave, as detailed, blah, blah, blah. So, and then they talked about in the case of cremation niches, which is different than a grave.
Right.
So, that single grave, I think they just need to clean up that paragraph. It's very
I will
confusing.
check.
Yeah. It's a crazy thing that we're
Well-
talking about this, but like, I guess we gotta,
I'm thinking between the 1 and the 4, that should not be and, that should be or.
right?
The one that I love is the last paragraph on that page.
Speakers of graves. Yep.
Aaron wants to know if he gets a discount.
I was gonna let that go.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
And let me know if you have any other questions afterwards.
Mr. Chairman?
Aaron?
Mike, was the main body of, all of these guidelines copied from something that's in common use throughout Massachusetts?
Yeah, they had a consultant work with them on it, on developing this, and then it went to town council for review, looking at all state statutes and everything else to make sure everything.
So this really was kind of customized
Right,
for Norton and not just grabbed
no.
from, okay, my hope was that this was something that was, already in use in 350 Massachusetts towns, and we were gonna be the 351st. And it's working for everybody else, so it's probably right.
Most of it probably is, I'm sure the consultant came in and said, showed them what they had and they've done in other communities. And then they had obviously, their things that they may have wanted in here. And then council reviewed it all.
Okay, my question for them, I guess, then would be, where do we vary from what anyone else is doing here? What are the differences between our regulations and anybody else's regulations, and why?
Right,
Just-
I'm sure they're pretty standard, because that's why they hired the consultant who had done it before in other towns.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
can we get a representative of that committee to speak before
Sure.
us? That would make sense.
Yeah.
They could answer the questions.
Can we get them on how?
Yeah, we
Done before that.
we need them before October 31st.
That's a shame.
All right, we'll have someone come in to, okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. Awesome.
See you Monday.
See you Monday.
You got a few little talks about the cemetery being perpetual care location. But then back here,
I paint.
you're very talks about the first cemetery. Cemetery is overgrown with many residents, which means we're not taking care of it.
We got some correspondence from Southeastern Regional, basically saying the assessment will be unchanged from last year to this coming year. So now I guess we just wait to find out how many bodies have chosen that path.
And that's just the student assessment, it's not that other assessment we got for that financial capital thing they had?
That was the other school.
Oh, that was the other school?
That's
That was Bristol Ag.
That was
County
Bristol Ag, yeah,
Agricultural
okay.
School.
So I have it there. I don't think we have minutes.
No, I've not translated my scribbles.
I don't think there were any other happenings between our last meeting and tonight. Walter?
I did meet with Chief of Police this afternoon, in fact, this morning, to introduce our efforts to reach out to the groups, to the committees. And we had a very good conversation, great conversation, lots of very relevant topics. No surprises, but there were a couple things I wanted to just run by the group, just to get some opinions. Two of the things he mentioned are issues near and dear to our hearts. Turnbacks, for one thing. So we discussed we had the same discussion we always have when we discuss turnbacks. You know, are we going to punish departments that turn money back? And we went back and forth and in total agreement about how that should work and how it works in real life. So I came away from that thinking we need to be more upfront with our position on that, so that departments aren't reluctant to turn money back when there's a perfectly good reason to do that. And we discussed several perfectly reasonable things that the police department in particular encounters, you know, experienced officers leaving and being replaced by newer junior officers. Same thing happens in the school department, so.
Yep.
Fire
My point
department
was,
as well.
we should be clear that we're not gonna punish any department that chooses to turn money back. So I thought that was good. And then the other issue that we spent some time on was overtime. Another issue near and dear to all our hearts.
Yep.
And I didn't hear anything new, but what he said to me, you know, jives with what I hear most of the time here. But I did want to hear that one more time from the group, just to make sure I understand our position on that. You know, he was concerned about the cutting of the overtime, you know, with the promise that he was going to get it back in the fall. So he had some concerns about that being the normal course of operations.
I think as we left it last week, we understood that this was something we would have to approach with a good amount of caution. I think Mike made a good point about not wanting to dissolve the trust that departments have in being able to give turnbacks without losing that money from their budgets, and creating an environment of use it or lose it.
Right.
Budgetary, I mean, that's, common in the office, and I think it's a good thing that, people feel like they can run their departments as efficiently as possible and not be punished for that. Like, it's a sensible thought. And I hear, and Chief Clark is I'm sure expressing, the exact same thing. And, it's something that we'll have to consider, because, I see both sides of it. But I think it's super important to protect that, protect the department manager's ability to not make unnecessary purchases out of fear of losing that money from their budget.
So, I had the opportunity, it was in August, to visit the police station on some family business, and, when the chief saw me there, he took me aside, and we discussed, overtime. We did it in pretty in-depth. He pulled out his chart, and he was explaining, well, this happened here, this person's out, an injury, this person's out on vacation, this and that. We try to keep, the day shift, we try to keep X number of uniforms on the street, and then, overnight. And so he got very in-depth. And, he was expressing the same concerns he expressed to you. He doesn't want to lose it. He doesn't, he doesn't want to really worry about it, per se, and his ability to plan. And my only point I made to him that I've made here before is, at some point, if your overtime budget is so big, that's a body. That, where do you make the distinction of continuing to fund overtime versus, hey, if I hire one or two more individuals, then I don't run into that overtime dilemma as often. You'll never eliminate overtime, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as big as sometimes we've seen it. And from my perspective, that's the exercise I'd like to see done. At what point?
And we did discuss that, and, I asked him outright, are you comfortable with the staffing level that you've got right now? So he didn't pull out any numbers to say he can support that that's the proper number, but, the chief of police, he tells me he's comfortable with it. That carries a lot of weight in my mind.
Right.
And he also explained to me how we've got this pool of special police officers that can serve as backfill. And we've got 6 on staff right now that can be called upon to backfill things. And he said that is the proper level that he would like to have as well. So while I understand the goal for optimum employment levels, I gotta wonder, it seems to me he's comfortable with the way it's working now. It may not be optimal, but he's got a lot on his plate, not just, if we had a business analyst to analyze this and spend days or weeks, whatever it would take, that's one thing. But to ask him to be constantly going through this evaluation process of, is my special pool adequate for my full-time pool? I'm just thinking that's a moving target that we're never gonna optimize. So I tend to give a lot of credence to his feeling, his gut on that particular issue. So, we could push him to do more analysis, but I question the long-term value because it's kind of a constant thing. We've got to reanalyze this every year, given changes in staffing levels and demand, really.
Right. Not to take any thunder away, but in the ad hoc committee, I think he gave information that indicated more people.
Well, I think he would like that.
Right.
He is comfortable with the levels that we've got right now. And
Yeah.
to me, that's worth a lot. The chief says he's comfortable, that's good for me.
Right.
So, could it be better? Sure. but what's the cost of making it better? Is it worth that cost?
That's Tuesday's meeting.
That's Tuesday's meeting. We'll report back next Wednesday.
I think there'll be a lot of circumstances in which, when we review these numbers, that is apparent to us. And when we're not sure and we have a question for someone, they make that apparent to us. But it's still worth looking at the numbers and seeing it and knowing it and understanding it, I think, for sure.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was an excellent discussion, and he was completely open with, lots of information. I saw the same tables you probably saw, so it was an excellent meeting.
Yeah.
Plus, he took me down to the range afterwards and introduced me to one of the lieutenants, sergeants, who gave me a taser lesson.
Did you get tasered?
On the
I didn't
giving
get
or
tasered.
receiving?
And
my
I guess I
gosh.
had that opportunity, but I chose to be on the other side of the game. So I did fire a taser as part of that visit.
I had that opportunity also.
This doesn't happen at the Permanent Building Committee. No tasers.
No toys.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, the school committee meetings don't have that either.
Peter?
The capital improvements met at 6 o'clock tonight.
Oh.
We went over some requests from various departments. Nothing was decided, just heard their request. The police department was looking for $16,500 for some portable radios. They're on a 5-year replacement
Yep.
thing for their radios. They have about 41 radios, so essentially it'll take about 8 years to go back and replace. So a radio replaced every 8 years. So then they have some spares and stuff. Some of the radios they have now definitely are past their, they don't make them anymore. They won't fix them anymore, kind of thing. And talked about some carpet on the second floor they need replaced. That was a decent chunk. The highway department came and talked about I gotta find it here, a truck with a crane for doing trees, a 75-foot boom kind of thing. And I think that was approved, it's been approved, and, no, there was a request, never mind. It's gonna take like a year to even get the truck, kind of thing.
So are they thinking of, instead of outsourcing the really big stuff?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
move it
Right.
in-house?
They have like a 50-foot truck now that they bought a few years ago, and it's dead, pretty much. Just a used one.
Yeah.
A used one. And it's gonna take at least probably a year to even get the truck.
I think in the past few years, we've supplemented them, if you get the exact number, maybe 25,000.
That's the number that I was
Yeah.
thinking too.
Just to do
Pay
that
somebody else.
clearance of trees near power
Right.
lines and branches, so it doesn't go far.
No,
So I think having their own vehicle
yes.
gives them a lot more latitude to do the job. Scope.
And the fire department came and talked about a new fire truck
Oh, dear.
that they've been working on, and by the time all the numbers came in and everything, it's a little bit more per year, an extra 15,000 for the next 4 years as opposed to, from the original amount of 125. Because steel has gone up since the, funny how
Is
that.
it the second year of
How
that?
did that happen?
It would be the second year, this would be second year, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so the amount would go
all
up a
go up
little bit.
15?
Yeah, up
Or at
15,
least.
right, yeah. And that's gonna take
Until it goes up again.
another year to actually get the truck. Purchasing another ambulance for $370,000. Most of that comes out of the ambulance fund, and another staff car for them. That would be an 80-20, 80 out of the ambulance fund, probably 20 out of the capital improvements. So they wanted to, fire department wants to change the schedule of ambulances from kind of a 4-year recycle to a 3, because they're putting 30,000 miles on an ambulance in a year already. So they want to, what they do is they have the newer one that does most of the runs, say that's a 3-year-old, say that's a brand-new one, the one that's 3 years old, or now is 4, would become like the secondary one that's stored over in the Charlie Station that gets a little less runs. And the third one they have is a hot backup. That would be the oldest one right now. That's more like over 8 years old. That does go on runs. It's not like it's there for spare parts, but it's used frequently because it's in case they need to have a third one. So
They're,
we wanted to up that to 3 years from 4 years to, because they're putting mileage on it. And face it, they're making tons of money on it.
Yeah, they're busy,
So
Yeah.
yeah, they-
it pays for itself.
unfortunately.
And there's some other ones that we haven't discussed on the docket.
they've done some remodeling, by the way.
What?
The fire department, if you go in, the office now is up front. And they've done some.
Right here?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So Becky's up front now and, bigger space. I think it's a little bit more, friendly for residents or whomever needs to do business.
Great.
No decisions made, just presentations with stuff.
And I guess I'll just follow up tomorrow night. I plan to go to the selectmen's meeting, select board meeting.
Still the selectmen for another couple
The
weeks.
select board meeting, right?
Yeah.
That's- So I will report back, on Monday. We have a meeting next, when do we meet? Next, did I say Monday?
Monday
right?
and
Yeah,
Wednesday.
so we're meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Busy week.
Bonnie, did you have your hand up at one?
I did. I was going to let it go. But when Walter was talking, it was making me think about not just the police department, but all the departments. And so, I think like to varying degrees, because I agree with you, we should have trust in the department heads because this is what they do. He in particular has been doing it a very long time. But I think we also ask a lot of questions, even of the people that we know have a doctorate, in their field. And we ask them to explain a lot of very specific things. And sometimes it's going to happen. And so I think it's like a balance of we trust this person and we should trust this person. And also in our role to ask questions as this committee to make sure that we're kind of doing the due diligence of what we're entrusted to do by the community. So that was just what was kind of rolling around in my head when I was thinking like, does he think we don't trust him? Because I don't think anybody would say here that they don't. But
Right.
Right, no.
we still have questions and we need to be able to ask them. So we don't want that to translate as being a lack of trust, I guess.
Well, I think to your
My
point,
point.
that's why we asked Mike if we could have like the last 5 years by department of what was turned back. Because I think if it's an anomaly from year to year, and one year you're turning back 50 cents, and the next year you're turning back 50 grand, like, there are big swings in certain areas, and I think we understand that. But if you're a department that's turning the same $15,000 back in year after year after year, I'm not saying you can't have it or you shouldn't have it, but I think we need to talk about it.
Right. It's not just, the dollars per se, but it's, what's behind it, why.
Right, because if the funds that you asked for were for a specific purpose, and that work isn't being done, does that mean at some point in the either near or distant future, we're going to hit a wall where we all of a sudden have a $100,000 problem because we haven't been spending 10 grand every year for the last 10 years?
Right.
And then they want us to hit the FinCom reserve or stabilization or something to make up that gap because it wasn't taken care of along the way. That, I think, is the more complicated part of the issue.
Right. I mean, part of my quest, and it's similar for the most part, part of my quest for projections are not to hold Mike or the people providing the information to that number that they gave me at the end of the year.
Right.
We're going to hit this number. The point of projections are, when you get to the end of the year and you're above or below, why? To find out, did you miss something? Did something come up unexpectedly? Did you not need it? And it's not a matter of being able to hit that projection spot on year in and year out, year in and year out. It's the ability to look at the projection where you thought you would be to where you are, and to figure out if there's any discrepancy, why. And by having the why, you can then plan, hopefully, better in the future. That's really the point. Anything else? It's that time.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter,
I make a motion, we do adjourn.
Second.
motion and a second to adjourn.
I'm just going to be really sad he missed 2 very short meetings, because I have a feeling the upcoming ones are not going to be so short.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.